I'm here to bring you a little bit of joy and to get you to meet some incredible people. So today, Swati Goorha is joining me. She has a prolific resume. She's brilliant. She's beautiful. She's elegant. Her design style is incredibly unique. And those of you who know her know it. Those of you who've seen her know it. It's unique because it's not only stunning and beautiful and layered and exotic, but she can unapologetically do it like nobody else. And we will see her in a second. Hi.
Hello, how are
I'm
you?
good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, there you go. You
Thank
can
you for
lower your.
having me.
It's so hard to do this once the two squares come up. We kind of like adjust. But how are
I'm
you?
good. How are
I'm
you?
so good. We've only had a few chances in our lives to like really chat with each other, but you are just such a gem, such a joy, so
Oh,
giving. And guys, her talent, like right now, you should all go to her website, which is Swati Goorha, SWATIGOORHA.com, and look at her beautiful stuff so we can kind of get that out of the way. We're actually, I know often you speak on panels, right, Swati?
yes, I
We're
do.
not going to do that kind of thing. Like, I just want to get to know you a little bit better. And then, of course, it's going to come up. I'm sure we'll have some advice for people if they're watching. Hi, everybody, to give them some advice and stuff. But really, I'm so curious about you, your story. Like, can you tell us about you? Give us a little backstory on your.
So I came to design very circuitous in a very
Ooh,
circuitous way. I my undergrad was in chemistry. I never thought I would do. I was always very creative. I was into art, so I was into
yeah,
like drawing and doing sculptures and stuff in school, but never. I was born in India, so it's always like doctors, engineers,
that's what
and
you've got to be.
yeah, yeah. So never even thought that there was an option for me to go into a line of creativity. I was more technically oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So my undergrad was chemistry. Then I got another master's degree in marketing and PR. And then
Please.
I had a child very early on. My husband and I, we met when I was like 20 years old, and then we fell in love, we got married, and then we found out we were pregnant. So he was at Cornell at that time,
Yeah.
and I had some time to basically take some time off to spend time with my
Right.
son. And when I was there, I started taking some classes in photography because I knew now that I have chance to pivot to something
Yeah.
else. I would
Right.
like to do something more creative. So I was thinking about maybe photography. I took some classes in the architecture school. I took some classes here and there, and
Wow.
after going around, thought even of like maybe becoming a
Yeah.
lawyer.
What can make
Then
me money and stimulate my brain?
yeah, so I was like going and doing all these, thinking about different things. And then, after taking some classes in architecture school, I realized that, unlike what we think about interior design and architecture as being more purely creative fields, they're very technical.
Very.
And,
Yeah.
that's one of the things that people tend to completely bypass when they think of interior design as an
Yeah.
industry. Every time, if I have to collect a penny for every single time I told somebody I'm an interior designer and they say, "Oh, how fun!" I was like,
You're
not
like
so much most days.
60% of it is fun. The rest.
Is like, managing so many different moving parts because if anything can go wrong, will go
Right,
wrong.
right, right.
And I
And
have to
knowing how to manage that is so important.
things. Yeah. So I found interior design to be very not only just artistic but also technical because it's not about just picking colors and
Right.
having pretty furniture that fits in a space. It's also about creating environments.
Hmm.
Making sure that if somebody has a pet, then what kind of,
Yeah.
how the flow of the house would be,
Right.
what kind of fabrics, because there's so many things that comes from having a pet versus having young children versus being an empty
Yeah.
nester. And then, there's also the angle of sustainability, which is very important for
Yes. I
us.
love that. I read that in your bio and I love it. I mean, all of your ethos is really strong and clear. So I love that.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I did from the get-go. just clearly define who we
Right.
are, and
Right.
especially in a saturated industry like ours, especially in New Jersey, as you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
such talented, such amazing designers
Right.
everywhere in New Jersey, like in just the four square
So,
mile radius that
right. In our little 4 square mile radius. Right.
that I
Meaning
live
there's
in,
no scarcity. I mean, there's something for everyone, and you're very clear about what you offer.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And I'm very fortunate that we are in New
Yeah.
Jersey because, the industry here is so supportive and
Yeah.
all the designers are so supportive. Every time I need something, I would text other designer friends and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, how do I find this? Or they reach out to me and they're like, how do we find this? And we are all very supportive. But that's the thing. If you're very clear in who you are as a person, because I'm sure somebody who wants to work with me may not be a good fit for you, but somebody
Right.
who wants to work with you may not be a good fit for me. But
Right.
there are so many different factors in terms of what we serve. And I have been very clear on who I am as a designer. I like to work with people,
Yeah.
and that's one of the most amazing thing. I'm very adventurous and I get bored of things really fast. Like,
Yes.
and the reason why interior design has held my interest for so long is because every single time I meet a new client,
Yeah.
I get to think from a different perspective and I get to like really learn new things because
Yeah.
every single client pushes me to think outside the box.
This
And
is what's so fascinating. Sorry, go ahead. It's so fascinating because your designs are so vibrant, so full of life and color, and so unique and globally inspired, which is what I love. Like you genuinely do both things where you use your architecture training and you obviously consider the architecture and the way things, you honor that, but you also push it forward. And that's incredible. But I was thinking it's very funny that you're saying you were easily bored because, or not
I
easily
am.
bored, but it's hard to hold your attention, right? A lot interests you, but because then we do these things for our clients and they have to see it every day.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
also, you're
Yeah.
like, I wouldn't necessarily want to see it every day. How does that work in your own home? Like, how does that manifest in your home? Do you change things a lot?
I do. We've been in a long 4-year
Oh,
construction
oh, I
period
didn't know
where
that.
indecisiveness is like a big. I think one of the things with me is I travel a lot. I
Yeah.
travel all over the world. And every time I go somewhere new, I come back with like so much inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
You want
so
to
much,
incorporate it.
exactly. And so much like, and also stuff.
Mhm.
And my house is like basically, it's right now we are under construction because we're putting a huge addition on our house,
My
but
God.
it's going to be a showcase of timelessness. And even though my designs are um, not super maximalist, but they tend to be more
Mhm.
maximalist, they're timeless.
So you've
We
created a basis, right, of structurally timeless things
correct
that have, speak to the character of the person you're designing for.
100%.
But then you can paint, you can change the wallpaper, you can change the art, is what you're saying. So you're creating very systemically something that can become incredibly unique over and over again, but will always make
Yes,
sense.
yes.
That's
And
it.
things like finishes and colors that I pick, they're not based on, oh, yellow is the color of the season or
Right.
the color of the season. I did Green Kitchen in 2018 at the
Yeah.
height of farmhouse
Yeah.
in a show house. And people were like, are you crazy? And I was like, no, but this is what is timeless. Like,
Yeah. This
you
goes with
know,
the environment,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's like the whole point is like creating something that you really love and you're going to love from 10 years from now. I'm never going to get tired of this. I'm never going to get tired of that. And just creating environments that speak to you and are a narration of your story. And that's kind of always been my focus. Like we have such a deep dive in terms of conversation with
Yeah.
the client, in terms of understanding who they are as people. I have them do a questionnaire. I have them do an
Yeah.
inspiration board. I literally get into their lives before I eat. Like,
I love that. Me too. And I love that you also, because of your expertise, you can bring, like for me, I actually don't have the same training you have. I also came from a roundabout way into design. Everything I've learned about architecture and things like that has been on my feet, learning and going. But I bet you're able to talk to people about like maybe things that seem a little off the wall design wise, but really have been around for a long
yeah,
time. Do you find yourself doing that sometimes? Like I often find myself saying, this sounds weird, but it's like actually very Parisian, or it's actually very ancient Egypt, or
100%.
something like that.
Anything that has to be done in design has already been done.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we tend to think is like, oh, that was so old, we are not looking. You need to look for inspiration. Nobody's coming up with the paperclip anymore. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? You can look at some things that were done a certain way like 100 years ago,
Yeah.
50 years ago, and then find a.
Oh, you just went silent. I don't know what happened. There you are. You're back. It's okay. Just went silent for a minute. So you're saying, oh gosh, from 100 years ago, you can find things that inspire you now. Is that what you're saying? What were you saying?
Yeah, so one of the things that everything has already been done in some form or the other. You know, you're not coming up with a paperclip anymore.
Right.
The key is to look at history and learn from the past. What were the things? Because these people spend their lives, like right now, we're in such a fast culture. We want to do everything in one. And some of these buildings have taken 10, 15, 20 years to make.
Right. And obviously, you're serving a community that has to have it livable in a certain amount of time. But what you're saying is spend the time and energy.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is like they spend so much time in understanding, you know, the art and the architecture and the usability of it to be able to look back at that and then take inspiration from that and see why it was done that way. What was the reason? And then convert that into a modern language is a great way to go, because then you're taking inspiration from the past and you're creating something timeless because it has connection to the past and it'll stay relevant in the future.
It works with other things from other eras and then things that you've discovered. I find this fascinating. You're probably finding the same thing I am in this era of sustainability, which it should have always been, but I'm so glad, like you write on your website, we are revisiting it, we are understanding it, we're starting to buy antiques, we're starting to spend money on quality products when we can. I mean, obviously this isn't accessible to absolutely everybody, but it kind of is close because there are these thrift stores and antique stores and things. But do you find it fascinating, like I do? Sometimes when I'm discovering these pieces, old pieces or really expensive pieces, that some of this cheaper stuff, it's almost made in a more complicated way. Like, why didn't we just stick with what worked in the beginning? Though it was higher craftsmanship, like, why are we trying to, I guess it's for speed, right? I guess it's speed, but I don't know. I just find it fascinating. Some of the things I look at that are very old, I'm like, this is so simple. Why do we get rid of it?
Simplicity takes way more time. Creating those dovetail joints that fit perfectly is way more complicated than just putting a few
glue
and glues and tapes and this and that, because it's just like you don't need perfect like underlayment for it to all fit together. It can be screwed on here, screwed on there.
Yes, adjusted, stapled, glued. Yeah.
And then also craftsmanship, you know, there's and I'm very glad to see this, that there is a focus coming back to craftsmanship again, because we were kind of like becoming all about flat pack, fast pack. If it doesn't work, I'll throw it out in 5 years. Take your time, maybe get one piece of furniture right now and, you know, get another one afterwards, and take your time in curating and building something that's going to last you a long time, rather than, because you end up spending way more money in buying these cheap things here and there, versus it's almost like fashion, right? You buy 10 dresses from some like cheap company for like $50, when you could have like bought that one dress for 100 or 150 bucks, which or $200, which would last you for years.
And you can dress it up and dress it down. It's the same thing with the furniture.
And that's the thing I say, like, get few pieces, support local artisans. I know it's not available to every single person, and I'm completely, I understand it, but there are so many times you can get an older piece of furniture which is way better made. And reupholster it and give it a life rather than throwing it out. You know, so many people, I go to so many people, and a lot of my clients are empty nesters, and they're like, my kids don't want my furniture. And I'm like, I can understand, like, the style may not work on certain things, but like you can totally take an old sofa and an old chair and reupholster it. And all that's coming
And
back.
you're spending the same you would on a new sofa, maybe. a cheaper
Exactly.
new sofa, but you're getting something that you could do again in 20 years and then
Exactly.
have something. Yeah, that's great tips.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about your world traveling. So where have you been? What is your favorite? Like, tell us about some of your travels and some of your most memorable ones and maybe most recent.
Um, I have traveled a lot.
You
I've
still have
traveled.
family in India,
I
or?
still have family in India. My mom shunts between India and here.
Wow, great.
Yeah. So, I have traveled all over the world. My favorite, I think one of the most memorable ones is definitely Venezuela because it's hard to get to, and a
Yeah,
lot of people I meet have not been
never been. Yeah,
because of all the unrest in the country.
yeah,
But it's just like, and because of that reason, the country is very, very untouched almost. And
yeah.
when we went to the Angel Falls, which is the highest falls in the world, it it was literally us and another couple,
Yeah.
nobody, and the
It's
whole
hard to get there,
exactly.
to go through all the hoops, and then
Yeah, and it was
wow.
just so beautiful and just the most magical place I've ever been to, and it was quite amazing. But there's so many beautiful countries. I've been to
Yeah.
Peru, I've been to, Colombia, I've been to Cambodia, Thailand, all of
Are
Europe.
most of these for vacation, or have you had the opportunity to design in some of these places?
No,
Not
I
yet.
have done some work in India, but not so much in other countries. I hope to change that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. You'd be perfect for that. I mean, that's you're just everything about you speaks to being global, being able to. What languages do you speak? Also, because you said you speak. Tell me the languages you speak.
Yeah, I speak many. I understand Korean. I speak Hindi. I
Yeah.
can write in and understand Sanskrit. I have very basic. I learned French in school, but I feel like I've lost it
Yeah,
all.
but if somebody spoke to you, I mean, France, if you can, yeah, you would pick it back up. I can tell.
Yeah. And then some Spanish understanding,
Wow.
I find my way
Right, right.
around. But
What
yeah,
about Korean? How did that come about?
it's a long story.
Okay, well, it's not a good one.
I think
All
we'll
right.
leave it for another
Leave it for
day.
another day. Oh my gosh, now I'm very intrigued. But that is fascinating.
Yeah.
That's a really great.
Yeah.
That's so you're primed to be able to go somewhere else and do that. I imagine though, I know a lot of people who do international design. It's got to be hard. I mean, especially now. I mean, who knows what's going on? But
Yeah.
just it's hard enough in our local areas, right? To figure out all our people. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I just can't imagine doing that somewhere else. I guess you would really need boots on the ground.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's amazing about, traveling and being able to immerse yourself in other cultures is basically just the perspective changes.
Yes.
No,
Tell us about
I
that.
think that's one of the things that travel opens your mind about because we are so used to doing things this way, thinking this
Mm,
way, doing things this way. And then you go out and you see people, being more respectful to earth or doing certain things that are so much better for the environment.
yes.
Adobe homes, things that you would not think about. And I am more pivoting towards becoming more aware,
Right.
and getting more connected to the earth. I have had been on a spiritual journey for the last 2 or 3 years,
Yes.
which has been amazing and is percolating slowly into my work too. Mindfulness with everything, being aware, not just doing things for the sake of doing
Right.
it, but putting some thought behind it and
Right.
really understanding how does it benefit the people who live in the house? How is it helping their life? How is it
Absolutely. It
impacting?
can't just look great. It has to be the holistic approach.
Correct.
I love that.
Yeah, and that I feel like that's been done all over the world.
Yeah.
People are very in touch with the nature, where they live, where the house exists, and we kind of lost it a little bit here, uh,
Yeah.
because of like keeping up with the Joneses,
Yeah.
the constant trends that keep coming up.
We're very susceptible, I think, to here, especially, and I'm sure there's a lot of this elsewhere. We're very susceptible to the moment, like the next thing and the moment, like, and not really, just absorbing and feeling the need to collect, right? The collection.
Yeah,
It's fascinating to me. I think what you said about opening perspectives by traveling. is so vital. And I think it's, everyone can't do it. Again, everyone can't do it, but what they can do is maybe watch PBS or like figure out ways to absorb other cultures. I think it would help us all a lot right now
Yeah.
to understand that we are
Reading
not
books.
existing in a vacuum.
Exactly. Reading books. I think books are
Books,
great for like, and going to museums.
oh,
There's so many different
museums,
ways.
yes.
Like,
And they're technically supposed to be free. That's part of our taxpayer dollars. They're supposed to go towards those.
yeah, every time. Like, I find a lot of inspiration in art,
Yes.
a lot of inspiration, like going and seeing things and, going to museum. We are so blessed
We
being
are
in New Jersey.
lucky
Like
here.
in New
Yeah.
York, we have the Met, we have the MoMA, we have the Whitney,
Yeah.
we have the Guggenheim, we have all these amazing museums,
Yeah.
and they're not expensive. And if people can't afford to like fly out every single time, and now the world has become so small. Like,
Yeah.
you do not really need to go somewhere to
You
really
don't.
understand the culture of a place.
I
Online,
would,
you can just literally find out, see the picture,
again,
like,
just make sure you're getting it from the right resources, right,
yeah.
Swati? That's my biggest thing is you can get anything, but like make sure you know where it's coming from, and then you really can explore. In fact, I'm curious about what you think about this, like Angel Falls, right?
Yeah.
There's people who say now that the internet is so prolific or whatever, and that people can go look up images of it. I imagine it wouldn't take away from the magnitude of actually being there. But there is this sort of thought process a lot of people have about, because there's so much access to all these places, it becomes like just an Instagram moment and people aren't really going and appreciating it. Or when they go, they're not really feeling like it's as great because they already saw it in an amazing video or something. How do you feel as somebody who's traveled the world? Do you feel like nothing really does those places justice, or what do you think?
I think there's like, so going to a place is not just the being in the spot and taking a
It shouldn't
picture.
be.
I see that happening a lot more. It's a journey.
It should be a journey. Yeah.
Exactly. When I went to Angel Falls, we had to wake up 4 a.m. in the morning and then
Yeah.
take a car to reach this place where we took a raft up the river for almost half a day to this point from where we had to hike up a forest because it's like very inaccessible.
Yeah.
Up a forest,
We're,
a hill to get to this point. And just the whole experience was so
right.
magical. Being able to listen to the sounds of the forest, the sound of the, you can't,
You can't
that's one
explain
of,
it. Can you? Doesn't it just make you imagine, like, how did the first people find this? Like, they just like they
it was
lived
found
in the
by
jungle,
it was actually found, I think, found by a pilot, a private
flying
plane
over
pilot.
it. So
And
it took a while.
flying over it, and he saw it, and that's how, and his name was some angel. I
Oh
should,
yeah.
and that's how it was named Angel Falls.
So
And
it's highly likely that there were no indigenous people ever to see it before that.
there were like, there's so many myths and
This
stories.
is so much
Yeah,
fascinating to me
it's
about the world.
such a fascinating. They said they were like these people of the forest that only live in the forest, and you can't see them unless they want to show themselves to you.
So
And
maybe, maybe
that was,
not.
yeah, it's just such fascinating stories. And they were like, they live in the forest here, and the forest are like very dense and thick. And we were like, the whole time we're like, would we see
Wonder
them?
if there are
Are
people
they
here.
there? Really fascinating. But that's the thing, those are like, yeah, you can see the picture of the Angel Falls on the phone or Instagram, but
Yeah.
would you know the stories that the
Yeah.
people tell?
Yeah.
Would you have the experience? Would you know what it smells? Would you be able to touch the flowers?
Yes.
There are orchids that grow on those trees that like that were there were these plants that explode and fly, and you could see their seeds and touch
Yeah.
them, and you were able to like walk through the puddles and go to, like, there's so many experiences that you have, and those experiences are like, that's one of the things that I think we are losing when this in
Yes.
social media age. We forget to enjoy the journey. We always want to get to
Yeah.
the destination.
Yes. Yeah. And what's next? And yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to enjoy the moment, the process, the journey of getting to the egg point. And that's why just getting to Angel Falls, sure, you can take a helicopter, but would you have as much
Yes.
of being able to like go through the river and smell the forest
And
and
it
look at all the beautiful
gives you an appreciation for the earth Because there's a difference between, I think there's so much, I'm so fascinated by like archaeological sites and like human existence and all that, but I'm also so fascinated by just nature. And if you don't get the chance to experience that, you may not appreciate it as much. And that's something that I hope people get a chance to appreciate and people get a chance to want to protect
Yeah.
because it's so vital. And that's why one of the reasons I love you, and we'll have to do this again another time because we're sort of at the beginning of wrapping it up now, but is that you come from this perspective, this like global perspective. You respect not only the process of design and the like artistry of architecture and all those things, but like you have a whole understanding of how all these things affect our planet, our communities. And I just think I'm so grateful that there are so many people like you who are so talented and showcased so often and also are promoting all the best in us, you know, in all the ways we can be better. It's just, we need it.
We all do, and we all strive for it, and we are all doing our little things. And you're doing so amazing. I
I
see.
like to share stories.
Yeah, I love that. And sometimes we all have stories, but unless they're shared, nobody knows about them.
Yeah. And we don't always hear it when we just talk about design. I think there's so much more to it. You know, like where does this come from for Swati? This comes from her life of experience. This comes from her. I'm curious a little bit about your spiritual journey too. So is there a specific, just before we ask my final questions, do our little show and tell? Is there a specific way that you're experiencing that? Is it yoga? Is it like, tell us just a little bit about that.
So yes, yoga is definitely part of it, but I'm more into mindfulness and meditation now. So I spend like my evenings and my mornings, meditating. I have taken up pottery now.
Ooh.
Started throwing, that's also great journey, like of mindful and being present and just being able to be in the moment. And I'm realizing because one of the things as creatives, we're always like, oh, this problem, that problem, and there's always going to be problems.
Yeah.
And the things I've realized, you focus on expand. So
Yes.
I have,
Struggle with that.
yeah, if you focus on negativity, if you focus on problems,
I get
they
preoccupied with the worries.
exactly, it's only going to expand.
Yeah.
So I've decided, and I make conscious effort to focus on things that are working, and how can we work on the things that are not working to get them to where they're working,
So,
instead of like complaining about the
right.
things
So
that I was
connecting your mind and your body, finding the things you can do that are helpful, focus on
exactly.
those, put them in perspective.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
That, and just also exploring my authentic self. Like I've been doing a lot of shadow work and understanding, because we are all we've all become subject of our own conditioning,
Sure.
and we have been conditioned by, like, from the birth we have
Sure. We have
conditioning.
to conform to some degree to something.
Exactly. Friends, college,
Mhm.
parents, friends, social media, this is how you should be, this is how you should look, this is how you should.
Yeah.
And now I'm making a very conscious effort in basically being who I just want to be, that makes me feel comfortable. Whether it's like, I don't care, I don't want to wear heels anymore.
Yeah.
I don't,
Honoring your authentic self on the inside while still managing to not make everyone around you miserable or uncomfortable. Not that you ever would. I'm just saying we could all do
yeah.
that.
And I think it's important to realize that once you have resolved yourself, everything around you resolves.
Yeah.
Because, the way we move through world is our reaction to things that happen. And if we fix our reaction to things, then everything just falls, but like everything negative just falls. Because, there's a very funny quote that I remember, and I would like to share that.
Yes, I love this.
My hike said it, or like I saw it on her feed. Somewhere I heard somebody say this, where she said, I don't speak French, and if somebody comes to me and swears at me in French, or calls me fat, or calls me ugly in French, I would be like,
No.
huh,
Yeah.
have a great day, bye bye. Yes, if that same person comes and says it to me in English, I would fume, I would spit on them, I would be angry with them, I would be all like mad them, what changed?
It was physically the same experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The message was the same. It's how I assign the value to those words.
Right. And perhaps how other people perceive it around you, as well.
Exactly. And
But if everyone,
or how other people are perceived, it's about you. If you change your reaction to a certain
then
thing,
you're
then
unbothered.
you're unbothered, and then the people around you would be like, oh, if she's not bothered, why should I get bothered about it?
She's
Now
got this.
took the power of those words away, and you are just basically that person who hurled those words at you feels like a fool.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get into a reaction mode, now you've given them the power instead of taking the power.
I love that. That can be so helpful in business too, right? Where you just follow your path.
Percent. Sometimes we meet our clients and they're frustrated over some things, and you just kind of have to remove. And we as creatives always take things personally. We always take it like, oh, they're mad at us. They're not mad at us. They're probably mad at the situation, and we just need to subtract ourselves from.
How can we help? Time is going to happen, right? Things are going to happen. I love that. And we're going to help fix it.
Correct.
I love that. Oh my gosh, this is great. So tell me a little bit about what's making you feel like at home these days. What's home meaning to you these days?
I think I'm in a very Zen state now. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of shadow work, just trying to understand, and meditation. So being in nature is my Zen place. I'm very fortunate. We live in a place where we have beautiful, and I go hiking, and I'm always hiking and, doing those things. So that I think being in nature is my Zen place.
I love that. And it sounds like also within yourself, there's a lot of that. So these things are things that are warming your heart as well. So these are things that make you feel whole and complete.
Yeah. And I try to incorporate that in my design too with biofeedback. Having plants around you, having inspired motifs, they're always so uplifting versus like living in a box with no personality.
Yes, I agree. That's wonderful. Unless you have big, huge picture windows, and then you just get to see everything outside. So that's great. It sounds like you're finding harmony.
You have beautiful biophilic motifs behind you.
Thank you. I do. I like my one wall of wallpaper that I have in my dining room. I live in a little bit. I love nature as well. So I don't get great views. My house doesn't get that. I have tons of plants also, and I'm not even good at it. So some of them are staying alive. I'm like shocked. Some of them are supposed to be like really big leaves, and they're like tiny leaves. I'll figure it out one day. But I'm trying. Can you show us your show and tell?
Yeah, sure.
What do you got for us?
On this fun little color scheme. Let me see if I can turn.
Wait, this fabric you're showing me, is that what you're going to show me? Wait, go ahead. Our whole thing.
So this is kind of how we come up with like stories for a space.
Yes.
So this is a fun little palette that we've been working on for a client. And as you can see, I'm very like whimsical and adding elements together.
I forget what that pattern is called, the purplish, the violet, but that is my new favorite. I just discovered that like a couple months ago.
Yes, and this is like we were just talking about museums, and this is a fabric we actually
inspired by the Met.
Yes, and we are using some fun. This is going to be a fun pillow.
Oh yes.
In the middle, and
you are gifted at this, where you can pull out color and pattern and make it make sense together.
Oh, thank you.
It's just stunning. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, this is the room we have just finalized with our client.
Oh, good. I was going to say, you're not giving us anything away, are you?
No, we're just like, this is a fun room that we are working on. We worked on. It's just recently finalized, this fun project that we are doing. So again, as you can see, we do like a lot of modern motifs, like this gorgeous, with like a little bit of touch of like whimsy and a touch of like textures and patterns. So that's kind of what I keep talking about. You don't need to go all modern. Like this is a very modern and textured leather fabric, but we are mixing it with this very traditional jacquard pillow. And that's the thing, like layering interiors with like traditional and modern just is like the way to go. Otherwise it looks
I got to tell you though, not everybody can do that. That's why we come to you, Swati. So if you want someone who's an expert at the layering and the bringing together of the holistic design, we'll be definitely looking for you. And I thank you so much for joining me today. That was so great. I have so many questions about everything. We're going to have to do it again.
Sounds great. I would be here whenever you need me. And thank you for your
Oh,
time and thank you for including me. I really appreciate it.
anytime. I really appreciate you. All right. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.